So, what I wanted to talk about today was the green body cleanse and cleansing your body in general, in particular the colon cleanse and why that's so important to our health. So, in human health, you can take any condition, any disease, and really narrow it down to one of two causes, and usually a combination of both. That's toxicity and insufficiency. And, you can take a moment and think of anything, cancer, heart disease, strokes, Alzheimer's, it doesn't matter. Really, it always comes down to toxicity or insufficiency, usually a combination of the two. So we're looking at toxicity because that's really the big one in this day and age. As humans and as a human species, we've never had such a toxic environment as we do now. So 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, our bodies were well equipped to deal with the amount of toxins in our environment, in our food, in our water, in our air, in our electromagnetic field even. But things have changed so rapidly in the last 50, even 30 or 20 years in terms of our food supply alone, but also in terms of our oxygenation in the air and the water. And our bodies aren't well equipped now. We haven't evolved at that same rate that the toxicity has evolved. So being aware of it, working to detoxify our environment, but also to detoxify our body is so vital. And what I've found is as we've started working to detoxify people, they start to feel better. And a lot of symptoms that are associated with autoimmune disorders and that type of thing start to clear up. People lose weight, they feel tons more energy, they sleep better, and they have better moods. And so we start with the colon. And the reason for that is that in terms of dealing with toxicity in our toxic environment, our colon is really sort of the front lines in that battle. And it detoxifies anywhere from 70 to 85% of the toxins that enter our body are dealt with in the colon. It's also the one area that's most negatively affected by our modern diet. So foods that are full of chemicals, flavor additives, preservatives, also high sugar content, everyone's favorite villain, high fructose corn syrup that affects our colon and our colon's health. Also all grain products, so especially glutinous ones, and then processed foods, highly cooked foods, all those type of things, they start to slow the works. It's like a plumbing system in there that gets clogged and clogged and clogged. And so the works are slowed. So what happens is the food matter is sitting in our colon for way too long and toxins start to leak back into the system. At that point, our liver tries to take over because it's the main blood detoxifying organ. And so all these toxins that are supposed to be exiting through our colon are now getting dumped back into the system. Not to mention the fact there's way more than there ever have been in the past. Now our liver tries to take over. But it gets taxed as well because it can't handle the degree of toxicity. So it's kind of like this cycle continues through our system. Our colon doesn't work right, dumps toxins back in. Our liver tries, it gets overwhelmed. And so now our body has these toxins still floating around. So the next thing it can do, it has to store them somewhere. It has to stick them away so they don't float around in our bloodstream because toxins floating around in our bloodstream can be serious, even fatal. So what our body actually does is it will sequester the toxins or put them in jail, if you will, in fat cells. And so we start to develop these toxic fat cells and these buildups of toxic fat tissue in our bodies, most commonly around the midsection of our bodies. And so in that case, you might, yourself or know people who exercise or dieted and really try to lose that, fat around their midsection and have almost no success, no matter how much they restrict their diet or how much they add exercise. That area just doesn't seem to go away. The reason for that is that our body will not burn those fat cells and release those toxins back into our system while our detoxifying system, colon and liver, are not working well. And so you'll even find that the body will burn muscle tissue before it'll burn those fat cells and release those toxins again. That's one of the reasons why people will lose weight from doing a colon cleanse. It's not so much that they have 10 pounds stored in their colon, though some people have several pounds. It's that their body starts to work better. And so now these fat cells that their only purpose was to store this toxicity can be released because those toxins can flow out of the system. So what we're talking about is cleaning out the colon first and foremost, and then we look to detoxify other areas of the body. Once we get the colon working better, we can then address the liver, which is great because most people's livers are overtaxed with, that colon toxicity, plus take any kind of drugs or medications or drink alcohol, anything like that, Tylenol, all those things affect our liver negatively. There's heavy metals, we get those, all kinds of places we get exposed to that. parasites and those type of things. But really we have to address the colon first, because if we try to detoxify any of that other stuff, it's just going to get recycled back into our system. So what I've done is looked for what was the most effective and safest and gentlest colon cleanse I could find. I looked at a lot of different products, and what I found was what's called a green body cleanse. And it has a unique method. So a lot of cleanse products, or a lot of things people are given if they have constipation or colon issues, are one of two things, either a fibrous bulking agent or a laxative. And those aren't as effective as the green body cleanse, which uses what's called a nascent oxygen. So basically, as you take a supplement and then it delivers oxygen into that colon area, that has a chemical reaction with the matter that's in there, the mucoid matrix, if you've heard of that. And what happens is there's a chemical reaction, and that stuff that's solid and stuck around on the walls of our colon actually liquefies. And then it just exits the system naturally and easily. With the fiber bulking agents, what they actually do is they go into our colon, they're bulk, they're a lot of mass, and they actually reabsorb water, or don't allow the colon to send water back into the body. So they actually dehydrate our system to some degree. And then that bulk and that water that it's now stolen from your body exit, you have a lot of bowel movements. And the idea is they sort of are supposed to scrape the walls of our colon. Now, if you think about, internal tissue and organs, it's not really meant to be scraped per se. That can be damaging or irritating, cause a host of other problems. And then laxatives are the other thing that, you find in a lot of cases. I read that the laxative business in a 4-year span was a $2.7 billion business. So you can see it's a big problem, constipation. But what laxatives do is they just chemically force your body to expel what's in there. But they do nothing to break down or help remove those toxins that have been stored in the colon mucous membrane. So what then the oxygen does, like I said, is a chemical reaction that allows your body to clear out those old stored toxins. What we typically recommend is for people who are relatively healthy and eat relatively healthy diets to do 3 rounds of a colon cleanse. It's a 6-day process, and there's about a week or so in between each 6-day round. It involves taking 2 supplements, one in the morning and one at night. The morning supplement is a particular type of probiotic that is beneficial in the process, and the nighttime one is that oxygen one I was talking about. There's also some dietary things you do. You drink a lot of fluid. So what we have, the water you drink is either filtered or distilled water, and it has apple cider vinegar, a little bit of lemon juice, and a little bit of aloe juice mixed in. And we drink up to a gallon of that or even more per day. That helps really kind of get everything moving through the system. And then you have 2 dietary choices. One is what's called all fruit, and that's more an advanced cleanse. And that you basically just eat fruit all day long. You eat as much fruit as you want. You can eat as many meals of fruit throughout the day, no matter when you're hungry. The only thing, the one thing is that when you eat a meal of fruit, you eat one type of fruit at a time. So if you were hungry now and you wanted to eat bananas, you could eat 1 banana, you could eat 10 bananas, whatever it took to, satisfy that hunger. And then in a half hour or an hour, you might eat grapefruits and eat 2, 3, 4 grapefruits, whatever it takes, to not be hungry anymore. And then, do the supplements. The other is more of like a standard plan, which is a little easier for a lot of people than just the fruit. And that's basically a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, so raw vegetables, salads, things like that, vegetable soups, a lot of fruit, raw seeds and nuts. You can also eat meat every other day at lunch only, and only chicken or fish. You don't have to, but if you want to add that in. And then healthy fats, coconut oil, olive oil, nut oils, things like that. So no dairy, no grains, no sweetened products, no artificial sweeteners, of course, and no beans or anything of that nature. And so what we're trying to do is just have a real clean diet full of, a lot of water. That's what's good about fruit, to help the process go along. After the colon cleanse rounds are complete, which, like I said, minimum is 3. And then if you're symptomatic, or we find it doesn't do the job with our colon, doesn't normalize its function, we'll even do more, 4 or 5 rounds of this colon cleanse until we get everything working well. So then we can start to detoxify the rest of the body, things like the liver and like I said, the heavy metals and so forth. But what we find too is that if we get the colon working well, some of those other areas start to detoxify themselves naturally, because they haven't been, because our colon is so clogged and so toxic. So that's basically the gist of the colon cleanse and a little bit of why it's so important and why it's so valuable. And also, you can kind of get a sense perhaps of how or why people start to have those symptomatic improvements. I mentioned the weight loss and why that happens. And then in terms of our autoimmune disease or those type of symptoms that people have, things like, chronic pain syndrome, so fibromyalgia, arthritic type of symptoms, there's psoriasis and skin conditions that clear up. And that's because as we detoxify the system, so much more of our body's natural resources are available to do and regulate what they are intended to do and to regulate. They're not being overtaxed and injured by these toxic, these toxins that are just, circulating through the system. And so our immune system can start to balance and regulate itself out, and those symptoms can go away. That's what we find with that. So hopefully that's gives you a little insight into why we do it and how it's done. It's not really too complicated, and like I said, it's pretty gentle. They've done safety studies on the oxygen supplement and found that there's no negative side effects, no toxicity at all at much higher levels than you would ever take. And so it works really gently because it uses that chemical process instead of some of those other more aggressive methods. I've done it myself. I think it's great, and I know a lot of benefits myself. So thanks for listening.